Oh. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today is April the 24th, 2424. I didn't really understand numerology. I still don't fully understand it. But when I began to really get exposed to that, which was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I was kind of starting to really understand, to be open to the idea of astrology, astronomy, numerology, all of these ancient ways in which those who have been teachers of these topics, they recognized what was going on through those particular sciences. I'll call them sciences or processes or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, and I began to study a little bit, just a little bit. I am barely scratched the surface of what is to be known in each one of those particular sciences, modalities. And I began to see the power of numbers. And I began, again, do not ask me to make any recommendations, because pretty much everything that I've studied on YouTube, and I don't save all those things. Or my gosh, my YouTube folders would be massive, thousands of videos. But it's really cool. So when I see something like 42424, I will, now that I have said that date for today out loud, probably after this, or maybe after my coaching clients, I'm going to go look into the meaning of those numbers, because it's really exciting. But anyways, here we are again. We are studying A Course in Miracles, and I'm Laina Orlando, and I love these appointments on Wednesdays at 12 o'clock Eastern time. It's just such a beautiful part of my personal experience, because what happens during these events is just something that is beyond my human mind takes over and just shares. And it sounds like it's Laina talking. I can't say I'm channeling, official channeler of anybody or any being. But what I do know is that when I step out of using my small mind, the higher mind gets accessed, and amazing things just get said. So I come here to be just as much of a listener, even though it appears that I'm doing talking, but I'm transmitting. And I listen for the nuggets that are important to me. And I have found in my own personal journey that A Course in Miracles has had a profound impact. And I have read well over, at this point, 600 books, and lots of different philosophical traditions, spiritual traditions, so many different things that have helped me realize that there is something absolutely magnificent about each and every one of us, that we are all made of the exact same substance, that we can't have different substances in order to experience oneness, that it has to be the one substance appearing in lots of different ways, expressing itself in the diversity that is truly the hallmark of what God is. Because even though God is one substance, it is expressing itself in infinite possibilities. We will never be able to fully comprehend, not with the human mind, which is a very limited way of perceiving things. We will not be able to fully comprehend the level of diversity. Humans have been trained to think of diversity as man, woman, black, white, rich, poor, very limited, very, very binary too. There's only this or that, and that's it. And we have been conditioned to believe that there's only this or that, so that we could be on this team or that team, so that we can pick this Super Bowl team or that Super Bowl team, this political team or that political team, this medical process or that medical process. So our minds have been trained into limitation, because as children, we really operated tapping into, we were transmitting source. Source was utilizing our body vessels to express itself. That's why children are so joyful. When children are allowed to operate in a safe environment and be given free reign in a safe environment, create a safe space and say, here, go play, their ability to tap into infinite possibilities is astounding. And they can move from one thing to the next to the next. Their mind is not on this or that. It's not just this game or that game, and that's it. They really tap into that infinite source that allows us to transcend pettiness and squabbles and the nonsense that we have all been trained to believe is okay. And that's evidence in our political world. It's this team or that team, and that's it. And even though we are told, that there's all these other parties, the independent parties, maybe the Green Party, really that's not the way the rules of the game are set up. The rules of the game are set up so that there's only two parties, and you can only really pick between the two. And a vote for anything beyond that is a waste. So we're told focus on two options. But God is a God of infinite possibilities. It's not even an option to limit God, because God is unlimited, and that's just the way that it's going to be always and forever. Thank goodness. But in our human mind, in our small axis of that infinite mind, we have got to do the work of looking at all of the ways that we have limited ourselves, all of the ways that we have confined ourselves to this and that. And that is one of the reasons that I love A Course in Miracles. Again, this book is the only book that I have found where I can feel the essence of God. I can feel that which is beyond human possibilities, human mind. Because what is shared in this book, and I've been a student of it for over a decade, more continues to expand. I read it and I go, wow. And I've read this book, I can't tell you how many times, at least 15, 20 times, all the way through. I do these lessons. I did these lessons consistently for years. I would start my year, I would buy a brand new book. I think I've got like 10 of these Course in Miracles books that were so written up. I actually, when I moved to Colorado, I threw away a couple of those books because I was like, I can't even, nobody can even look at them because they had so many markings and so many highlighters, so many different colors going at one time. But it is the kind of a teaching that as your mind becomes unwound of the limitations, as you free more space within your mind and you read the same sentences, you can see more. You can see a deeper message. I can feel the freedom when I get something at another level. And like I said, I've studied so many teachings, but this one shows exactly how we created a mind that is an obstacle to the truth, a mind that blocks truth, a mind that has been trained and just programmed, because that's really the best word. We have been programmed into seeing things as this and that, and there's no other options. And if you're not here, you're there. And if that's it. And you got to pick a side to survive, or you become, disinformation, or you become, a renegade, or you become a, insurrectionist, or whatever all the words are that they want to use to peg you for being this or that. Course in Miracles challenges your commitment to this or that. It moves you into a place of accepting really far out concepts, like that you and God are one. And of course, people, oh no, that can't be, because the mind is, well, this or that. God is that, but I am this. And Course in Miracles, for those students who stick with it, who really are willing to allow every single word to be sat with, to be felt, to be taken in. What are you wanting me to know with this message? Find freedom, absolute, total, complete freedom, because in that freedom comes our sovereignty. Our sovereignty is that we are as God created us to be. Powerful creators that, just like God, Course in Miracles taught me something I had never studied anywhere else before. And it was that there's only one difference between us and God. I grew up thinking that there were a million differences. God is a man and I am not. God is on a cloud and I am not. God has a beard and I do not. God has a power to, turn people into pillars of salt and I do not. There were so many things that God could do that I couldn't. And the Course in Miracles says, nope, only one thing. The difference is that God created us. We didn't create ourselves. When you are a student of the Course in Miracles, if you go deep enough into those teachings, you can only land at one place and one place only. And that is to discover that you're the creator of your own reality. Every thought that we have is creative. Every thought is a signal that sends out a message through frequency that brings back, like attracts like frequency. If you believe you're not good enough, you're going to have lots of opportunities of feeling not good enough. You're going to have lots of people who are going to treat you like you don't really matter. And not only are you going to have those experiences like they believe that you don't matter, but whatever they say, you will interpret as if you don't matter to them, because that's the lens you are seeing life through, because every word has power. And when you string words together, I don't matter, what you are saying decrees a desire for experience, because those creative words that you have put out are going to bring back to you the experience that validates for you what you have decreed is true about you. Now, we are not taught this when we are little. We do not get the pleasure of being explained exactly what all of this means. We are simply trained, conditioned into, well, that's what mom believes. That's what grandpa believes. That's what everybody believes. That's what the church says. That's what the government says. And we don't question those things. But we are at a time when there is a bifurcation happening. There really is in this 3D world. You got to pick a path. This path or that path. Interestingly enough, isn't that kind of a paradox? That in a God of infinite possibilities, we are at a fork in the road and there are two options. But here's the thing. The option to continue down the path of the ego, then the 3D path, the path of limitation of this or that, is because one believes that this is what they deserve, that this is what they are believing is true. If your fears guide you, this is the path you're going to take. And it's not because God is making you take that path. It's because God said you are created as a creator of your own reality. And if fear guides your life, your reality will be fear-based. But if you take this path, which means you have done enough inner work to realize that you do create your own reality, you are not here at the mercy of circumstances. Every situation is an opportunity for you to see, where do you stand? And if you come to the place of going, wow, if God created me, which means that I am created exactly as God, and the only thing I cannot do different, I can't create God. God is already created and they created me. That's the only difference. So then what do I use all this power for? Well, to create the reality you want to experience, to create what you want to experience. And if you choose to go down the path of accepting that you are the creator, and you recognize that to come to the place of knowing you are as God created you, and you come to know what God is, you come to feel the essence of this loving presence, this loving essence, this loving intelligence that creates everything and says, okay, have fun, do whatever you want to do. Not because it's saying, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to what you're doing, and if you do bad things, it's okay. It just says, you are the creator of your own reality. Unconditional love. Go do whatever you want to do. You will never be punished. You will never go to hell. You will never be in trouble, because everything that you do because you're one with all of it, you're only doing it to yourself, which is what's so amazing. Was one of the very amazing things is that as you move down this path, you realize nobody ever caused you to feel bad about yourself. They said things and you interpret it as a reason for you to feel bad about yourself. They don't like me, so that means there's something wrong with me. They didn't invite me, so that means there's something wrong with me. They didn't give me a hug, or didn't buy me the present, or didn't give me the money. There's got to be something wrong with me. It's an interpretation based on a limited awareness of who we are, which was taught to us by very well-meaning people. My mother, my father, my school teachers, they had no idea that we were creators of our reality. They all operated in the training that they had received by people that they loved, that did the best that they could with what they had, and came to the realization, well, I know more because I'm the parent, or I know more because I'm the teacher, and you're the little child down here. So as a little child down here, you take on these beliefs, and then eventually you move up to be the parent or the teacher, and then you teach your children, well, I'm the parent now, and you're down here, and I know, and you don't know, and I'm the teacher, and you're down here. Never realizing that we're all equally as powerful. Every single one of us, creators of our own reality. The child's creating their reality, the parents creating their reality. Parents create a reality of divisiveness, and I know more and you don't. The child buys into that, and they grow up and they teach that to their children. So through this process of awakening, which really what awakening means is that we are expanding our awareness of what is possible. We're opening up to that there's got to be more than what we know. That requires a willingness to admit, I don't know it all. And man, that's not an easy thing to do when you're operating from your ego. But those who have taken the path, I'll call it the road less traveled, have taken that path of, I don't know what else is beyond my human ego mind, but I trust that it is infinite possibilities, that there is an infinite world out there that can be experienced. And when you know that you're stepping into that infinite world from an awareness, because the only people who can choose that path are the people who have felt the presence of God, who feel oneness, who feel connected to each other, who recognize that we are all reflections of one another, who realize that what I do to another, I do to myself, which means you've taken the responsibility to only do good, because if what you do to another, you do to self, you want to do to self what is good. So those who are moving down this path, who have been moving, it's been happening for a very long time. Just now it's happening in mass. Many, many, many more have been realizing, wow, we can go down this way instead of the way that we have been going before. So, when we had things like the printing press and books began to be printed, more people began to understand truth. And then you come to the age of technology and you've got television, and you can begin to see more movies about the truth of who you are. And then you've got internet that you have access 24/7 to truth. There's a lot of propaganda, there's a lot of lies and conditioning and programming. But when you begin to feel what is true about you, you begin to discern. And as you discern, you can feel you want to move in this direction versus this direction. In the charts that I use, I break it down in this drawing. Sorry, I'm house sitting, so I don't have my usual setup where these are behind me. But when you realize that we are all born from an infinite space and we condense into a small idea of who we are, the path that we are choosing from is to stay contracted, condensed, limited, or to let go of all the layers that tell us that this is true and begin to move into the level of expansion, where we want to move beyond the known, where we want to stay in a state of wondering curiosity for what else? God, what else is there? What are these infinite possibilities that I can tap into? And the Course in Miracles lays out for you the path to remove the limitations, to remove the layers. But you cannot receive what the Course wants to give you if you don't have the willingness to believe the words that are shared here, the statements that are shared. If you don't take it as, this is true, And if this is true, what would my life look like if I lived as that, with practicing this as my reality? Well, most people, I know I did, begin to read the ego with, or the course with their ego. And the ego goes, what do you mean? Like we read a couple of weeks ago, anger is never justified. What do you mean anger is never justified? So and so made me angry. Of course it's justified. So and so did something to me. So and so did something to somebody else. So and so bombed somebody. They're justified in their anger. The mind that says, yes, anger is justified, is an egoic mind that is not ready to experience the liberation, the freedom that comes from accepting anger is never justified. So when we have the spiritual maturity to say, anger is never justified, this is truth. Why have I justified anger so many times? I was angry at mom. I was angry at dad. Wow, I was doing things that are not true. Where did I make up this anger that I assumed was justified? And then you enter into inquiry. Oh, that anger came because they forced me to do something I didn't want to do, because they wouldn't let me have my friends over. They wouldn't let me pick the college I wanted to go to. And I'm angry because they did that. I'm angry at my husband for cheating on me. And you begin to sit with, well, if anger is never justified, where did that anger come from? Then you begin to recognize that there is a small self, an egoic self that thinks is very self-important. And you begin to realize, oh, that self-important one is the one who made these statements that anger was justified. But what's behind that would never experience anger? Let me come to know that part of me. Then you drop into the seat of your soul. You drop into the part of you that is sitting back there waiting for you to access it. But while you're busy dilly-dallying with the ego that is justifying from a very small perception of self, oh, so-and-so has power over me, so-and-so made me do this, made me feel this, while you're feeding that little hungry monster that needs to justify its anger, you're not cultivating a relationship with a part of you that knows anger is never justified. So it takes an incredible amount of maturity to read the course and say, well, if what is said there is true, and I believe that it is, then let me begin to feel which part of me lives by that truth. And we begin to see that we are taking two paths. This is why those who are ascending into the fifth dimension have done the work. They have to come to the place that they recognize the lower self, the small self, the egoic self, whatever you want to call it, the wounded self, the childish self, what doesn't matter what you call it. We'll use Carl Jung's language, the shadow, because it is a block that casts a darkness upon the soul. You can't see the soul because this is blocking it. And then we operate as that's the shadow. When I take my little grandson and we go outside and the sun is behind us and here's my body and then there's my shadow, it's a small idea of who we are. But the light that we are, that is behind us that we can't see because we're so focused on that shadow, that light that is the truth of who we are will lead us out of the darkness, will lead us into the place where we will never experience anger. If more people would spend time contemplating, what would the world look like when there is no anger? What would the world look like, this human experience be like, if nobody got angry? What if people went to get their driver's license and nobody was angry? Oh, and people would be in line for hours waiting to get this little piece of paper that says, oh, I can drive now. And we met the loveliest person on the other side of the counter that is happy. They're not angry that they're working these long hours and getting such low pay with all these people who are angry because they've got to spend 2 hours there to wait to get the license and then they have the freedom to drive. What would the world look like if anger was never justified? If we spend time contemplating that, we would come to the place of recognizing that it would be a world of mature souls who are operating at a high level of awareness that they create their own reality and they do to others what they want done to themselves. And if you're in that line at the DMV waiting to get your license, you're going to treat other people how you want to be treated, because giving to them the respect is because you have already activated within you the frequency of respect. You respect yourself enough to respect others. You know, somebody who gets mad and angry doesn't respect themselves, because in order to make them feel bad about what they did to you, you have to feel pretty bad about who you are to be that offended. That lowers your frequency. That makes you feel like, little me against these mean people. That's not respect. Respect is, I'm going to accept the truth of who I am, and I was created as a creator of my own reality. I am created, endowed with the same rights as everybody else. All of us are equal. When we operate from that knowingness of who we truly are, which again is discovered when you move all the obstacles, when you remove all the layers of bullshit that we have learned throughout our journey, when you no longer believe the BS, the belief systems, when you no longer tolerate in your own mind the idea that I'm not good enough, and you begin to go, well, wait, what part of me is good enough? I want to be friends with that one. I want to hear what that one has to say. It requires a lot of training for us to decide to tell that egoic mind of limitation, of fears, of judgment, no, I'm not going to listen to you. In essence, shut the fuck up. When you are clear that you don't want to listen to this immature self, and you want to listen to the part of you that says, yes, I am magnificent. I am, not only am I good enough, I am as good as it can get, because I am whole, perfect, and complete. What does that feel like? For a while, the ego's going to get involved and go, oh yeah, I'm magnificent, but you're not. So it's still going to have a level of judgment. It's still going to have a level of thinking itself superior. It builds pride through this journey. As you look at this chart, pride is right up here. Our ego is going to take all of our spiritual knowledge and become very prideful about it. But right above pride is courage. It's a higher frequency. Courage calibrates at 200. Pride calibrates at 175. It's lower. And it can take a lifetime to move out of a prideful self that thinks, I am as God created me and I am the creator of my own reality, but you're not. A lot of parents who go on this journey, and I watch it because I coach parents and I coach I coach their children. And you begin to see that the parent has all this spiritual knowledge and thinks that it knows better than the child. But here's the thing about this, that if you're a parent who got trained into the lower frequencies, you're parenting here, but your child was born here, meaning your child came in at a higher level of wisdom than you have. But because you're trying to train them into what you know, you literally are teaching them BS, belief systems, to block their awareness, to have them forget the truth of who they are, lose their ability to tap into their intuitive nature in a mature way, and you train them to move down to meet you wherever you are. But of course, the souls that have been born to stay at a high frequency and not to go down like we did, down to where our parents were, those beings are resisting big time being pulled down. And they're pushing against all the systems. They're saying, no, you're not going to pull me down there. I know stuff that I know. And just because you're my mom or my dad doesn't mean you know better. I couldn't say that when I was younger because, I'd have the shit slapped out of me. And I didn't really even think that I know more than my parents, but my kids did. My kids knew that they knew more than I do. And thank goodness I had the wherewithal, because I'd already been on my spiritual journey, that at one point I began to realize, yeah, you do. You're tapped into wisdom that I'm not. And I began to listen to them. One of the reasons I moved to Colorado is because my grandchildren are my gurus now. That is who I listen to. I am watching them. I am realizing that they asked for what they want when they want it. They know that they deserve it. They know that they are good enough. And that allows me to be in a very high frequency. Whenever I'm with them, I'm bathed in high frequency, and I allow myself to be humble enough to have the courage to say, I don't know. I want to know what you know. you're closer to source. So the Course in Miracles has helped me remove all of those obstacles, a lot of the obstacles, maybe not all, but enough of the obstacles that I operate in a different dimension that can make the choice for I want a world that is, as the Course describes, a happy dream, where all of us are inside of this idea that we're separate from one another, which is not true. In truth, we're all consciousness, we're all energy. So we are one, but to have the experience of all the infinite possibilities that God is, having the experience of having a separate body so that I can interact with some of you, so that I can have the idea of motherhood, and there's a separate child, and there's of grandparenthood, that there's a separate child of mine and the child of theirs. To have the experience of separation is to operate in a dream, because we're pretending that separate bodies exist. And for us to really enjoy that game, we have to really believe that we are separate. And the Course gives us permission to experience a happy dream. But why not experience separation from a place of happiness, from a place of realizing that we're all, as God created us, that everybody is powerful, that we treat everybody with that reverence as being a powerful creator. Well, we have created inside of the dream of separation with fear, with anger, with I get to bomb you, and I get to know better than you, and I get to punish you. And we've created a world of bullies and victims. Here, it's okay to create at that lower frequency, and many will. And for many lifetimes, this will be their reality because they want to. That's what one of the things we have to understand. Anybody who's operating in darkness is a soul that wants to have that experience. Why? Because it's an experience. And those who want to experience being in the light and don't want to play the game because it's boring now, they've been there, done that. I've been there, done that. I don't need to learn through suffering. I do not take anything on as a lesson through suffering. I always go to every opportunity with joy, with excitement. Oh, what am I going to learn here? So I don't look at what I've lost. I look at everything that's expanding for me because of the awareness that I am bringing to it. In the new earth that we are moving to, you can't move into a world of happiness if you still believe in bullies and victims. You cannot operate in a world of true kindness and compassion where we share everything when you are trying to hoard what you own. If you're in the mindset, this is mine, you cannot be in the new earth where we share, where we realize everything belongs to all of us because God placed all of it here. All of it is an opportunity for us to play with creativity. So we are being taught to let go of our attachments, to let go of what clings to the old world and free ourselves up to what is possible. For many people, until you lose everything and realize, oh, I'm still okay, you're not prepared to move into the fifth dimension. Because while you are hoarding, while you're holding on to, oh, this is mine, and whatever, this is what keeps me safe, your mindset is too limited, is programmed still under the idea that your safety comes from the outside, that your self-worth is determined by your net worth. That way of thinking is not the same frequency as here. You won't be able to be with people who don't hoard if you are holding on to what you have. So it's a process of letting go. This is a total process of releasing, of removing, of letting go, of peeling all the layers until what is revealed is a true essence of you that accepts that if you're the creator of your own reality, why are you creating limitation? If you're the creator of your own reality, begin to use your imagination. Activate it. What do you prefer? What would you like for things to be? But see, the average human mind focuses on because it's fear-based, on protecting, where the mind of a child in imagination, it is focused on expanding. I want more. I want this. I want that. I mean, there's no shortage of the toys and the games and the fun that they want to have. But we start adulting, and then it's, I got to have this one thing, and I've got to have this one partner. I've got to have this one house. I've got to have this one income, and it's got to be this. So we got a lot of growing up to do. We got to mature our minds out of that childish, fear-based holding on to what little it has, because you can't open your hands for receiving all that is possible, but your hands are clinging to just this tiny little bit, which is always attached to your idea of who you are. Because the ego is an idea of who you are. Once you don't have that idea, then you don't really have an ego. Because once you are completely clear that you are the holy child of God, there is no ego. Ego is the belief that you're not the holy child of God. So let's get into today's section. We are still in chapter 30, the new beginning, because it's teaching us, how do you have a new beginning? Well, anger is never justified. That's part of it. How do you have a new beginning? Forgiveness is justified. You forgive yourself, you forgive others for forgetting the truth of who we are. It's a very simple process. And then it tells us that the real world that we desire, that fifth dimensional consciousness, that is achieved when you can perceive forgiveness as being justified. When you realize, you know what? I forgive everybody in the 3D world. Everybody forgot that they're creators of their own reality, but they're creating with misinformation. They're creating in limitation. I forgive them. They know not what they're doing. I didn't know what I was doing when I was operating there. Now I came out. I'm walking on this bridge to move myself out of that. And I'm moving into the truth, the realm of reality that is not only my birthright, but is like becoming a little child, where you realize your imagination creates everything. So once you know you don't like fear, it's not fun to be all shrunk up and in contraction. In expansion, it's more fun. Then you're going to be creating from a very happy place, because everybody is sharing in the expansion of all, because it's service to all beings. Why? Because you treat others as you want to be treated. You realize that you do to others what you want done to you. You are operating in nothing but what is for the greater good. But you can't do that from, oh, for me. What are they trying to take from me? Two different mindsets, two different frequencies. So when you realize that forgiveness is your right, but it's the real forgiveness that the Course teaches. You forgive yourself for forgetting the truth. That's it. It's not, oh, I forgive you, but I won't forget what you did to me. That's ego forgiveness. The forgiveness of the Holy Spirit, the forgiveness of God, is a forgiveness that says, I am the creator of my own reality because I was created by God to create. The only difference between God and I is God created me. I did not create God. Therefore, I have all the power that God has. And how is that power exercised? Through imagination. I must think it to have it become my reality. And that is a whole new way of being in the world, is believe it and you will see it. Before, oh, I got to see the paycheck to know that I've got the money. I've got to see the husband to know, or the wife to know that I'm not alone. I've got to see the whatever out there to know that I'm okay. To move into, no, I think it and then I see it, is to take 100% responsibility, is to become totally, completely sovereign of mind, the hive mind. You don't think what you were taught. You allow inspiration to move through you, but you have to become an open vessel. You can't be worried about stuff and at the same time be imagining something that is beyond what the mind can have been trained to believe that it can do. So we're in paragraph 6. And in paragraph 6 says that there is no sure proof. Idolatry is what you wish, than a belief that there are some forms of sickness and of joylessness forgiveness cannot heal. Bottom line, what that says, it's really very simple. This is one of the things that I love about the Course in Miracles. It's super simple to me. And I like to break it down for people so that they can understand. There is no sure proof that you're going to remain in the low frequency while you believe this. It tells you right here, while you have that belief, and it says, while you wish, because if you're wishing to believe that it's true, look, there is joylessness, there are unhappy people. See, it's true. There are sick people. Sickness is real. See, I have a friend that's sick. See, I have been sick. See, it's true. When you wish to believe that that is true, you block yourself from wishing to believe that well-being is our natural state, that joy is our natural state. You cannot experience joy and well-being as your reality while you keep pointing at, but see, sickness is real. I just went to the doctor. They told me my blood is down here and I'm deficient. So let's talk about this. While you're believing that that is true, it is true for you because you are the creator of your reality and that is your reality. But you can move out of that being your reality if you have the courage to move past your pride, your egoic pride of, see, this is true. This is the diagnosis. And if you prefer not to have a diagnosis, then you have to claim your power. You've got to activate your imagination. Well, what do I want instead? You've got to spend as much time in the imagination of what you prefer as you do in the validation of what you don't prefer. Did you hear what I said? You've got to validate your imagination's ability to take you beyond where you're at instead of validating where you're at. All time spent thinking about where you're at is giving creative power to create that as your reality. This is why, when we're constantly looking at how much is in the bank and assessing our circumstances and we're kept that way. That's why we have to file our taxes every year so you see what you make. So you validate that this is what you have. This is where you're at. Some people will say, oh, I want more, and they'll work their way out of there. But the systems are designed to constantly balance your checkbook and see where you're at the end of the month, to constantly look at the checkbook or at the paycheck, and this is what you have. So we are trained into validating because we see it, we believe it. To move to the fifth dimension, you got to believe it first before you see it. Our mind has been trained into a backwards process of the outside is real and I'm not. The outside knows more than I do. And we're shifting ourselves to no, wait a second, I know more. Yes, I have the diagnosis, I have the financial situation, the whatever, I can see it's there. But spend time imagining what you prefer. Spend time imagining yourself as a creator of your reality. If you can create your own reality, your thoughts are your wand. There was even a book written by Florence Scovel Shinn, I think is her name, like 100 years ago. Your mind is your wand. Your thoughts are your wand. Every thought that you think is a creative spark that is sent out into the universe that creates a reality. But if you're not fanning this spark, if you're not focusing on this spark, then, and you keep coming back to the diagnosis, the amount in the checkbook, then this is your reality by your creation. Not because they created it for you, but because you're agreeing, as it says right here, there is no sure proof of idolatry. You idolize the doctor, you idolize the checkbook, you idolize the bank, making them real instead of you. So if you idolize that and you keep pointing at, but well, the science tells us that, if my mother had it, I'm going to get it. If you're idolizing that, you're saying that is your reality. There is no sure proof of what you believe you deserve than you pointing out what is happening as why you are where you are. I mean, it takes a while to unwind the mind from that nonsense, but at some point, we've got to humble ourselves enough and become courageous to tell ourselves, you know what, I'm not going to believe. Just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean it's true. You've got to override your own beliefs, lower frequency beliefs, and choose higher frequency beliefs by saying, I recognize this is a limiting belief. This is an expansive belief. I'm going to spend time believing this. And when you start believing that, little by little, you take power away from the limitation into the expansive way of thinking. But it does take time for us to get there. However, the energies that we're in the middle of right now, these full moon energies that we're being bathed with now, especially after the process of the eclipse, all of this is energy. It's the creative source has designed a world of infinite possibilities where astronomy, astrology, numerology, all of these wonderful sciences that I talked about in the very beginning are supporting our being able to shift our thinking. I changed my thinking about numbers when I started to study numerology. I began to change my opinion about the stars when I started looking at astronomy. I began to change my idea about my birth sign and that I was a Sagittarius. And when I started studying astrology, I began to shift my beliefs into a higher perspective that was possible than what little limited knowing I had when I began to study some of these things, and they began to open my mind. But I was curious enough and I was willing to say, I don't believe this anymore. I believe this. And that has created stepping stones that have made a bridge that are pulling me out of the limitation that I have been operating in as an ego into the expansive self that is in alignment with my truth. I am spirit. I am as God created me. I am a powerful being, and I will treat everybody as I want to be treated, because what I give you, I receive, because it has to be felt here before it's sent out there. My rage, my anger has to be felt here. The contraction, the poisoning this body vessel is felt here. I give what I have received, and I receive what I have given. Those two things are interconnected. But when you come to know that you are as God created you, and you rest in the truth of who you are, you rest in the knowingness that you were created by a creative power. And there's only one difference, is God created you. You can't create God. God is. And you accept, well, then if God is, and I am made in its image, I am God. But you accept that from a place of humbleness that says, okay, this creative source created me to create. Let me create like it wants to create. And then it is creating. It is creating from love. You will be creating from love. That's where your peace and your joy comes from, because you realize we're all one. It's all oneness. God and I are one. And when you rest in that truth, you will not continue to believe and point at things that are limiting. You will recognize them in the world, but you won't be of them. And you'll do your bank statement and realize what's in there, but your imagination won't be in talking about what is. You'll be in imagining what you want to see. Because if you imagine it, you will see it. Then you activate the vision that allows you to experience life from the sense of wonder of a child. Well, what would I prefer instead? And see, instead of telling my kids, my grandbabies, well, especially my grandson, my little granddaughter, she's only 7 weeks old, but my grandson, well, I'm the grandmother and I'm babysitting you today, so this is what I'm going to make for dinner for you. I'm like, well, what do you want? Let me ask them to open up their imagination. What would you prefer? And do they want things that the old me would have said, oh, that's bad? In a state of joy, of happiness, at that high frequency. So what if they want, another cookie? So what if he wants to eat a cookie with his broccoli? So what? The old me that was, this is the right way, this or that, and this is how it's going to be. Very strict, very rigid. In the softening, in the allowing for inspiration, inside of that frequency, there will be never, illness cannot enter a frequency of joy, of love, of peace, of play. It cannot enter into that. But we've got to train ourselves into accepting that. So it goes on to say, when we're talking about this, there's no surer proof that you idolize limitations and sickness and lack of love, lack of joy, than to point at it. This means that you prefer to keep some idols and are not prepared as yet to let all idols go. Take an inventory of what you say. Oh, my knee hurts. Oh, so-and-so didn't invite me. I'm not liked by my friends. Whatever. I saw them on Facebook. They went together for dinner and they didn't invite me. If you keep pointing at the things that are not working, it's because you prefer to keep some idols. You prefer to hold on to that story that makes you feel bad, because you're feeding off of it. You're feeding your ego. You're strengthening your ego. Until you feed your soul and you strengthen your soul, you're going to continue to point at the things that you don't want as being real and having power over you. But you're the creator of your own reality, and that's what you want to experience. Good for you. You must want to experience more limitation because you haven't hit your level of total complete done with it. Until you're done with it, okay, I'm tired of saying my friends don't like me. I'm tired of that. Then what do you want to say instead? Because your words are your wands. Your words have power. So again, very simple. This means that you prefer to keep those as your reality. And thus you think that some appearances are real and not appearances at all. That way you can say, well, see, they didn't invite me. See, Facebook is posting the truth. They don't like me. It's true. They didn't invite me. Instead of being so happy and confident and comfortable yourself, go do your own thing. You go out to dinner by yourself. You go have a good time by yourself. You don't need them to invite you. And when you begin to pull away from those who don't want to be with you, you open yourself up to say, well, who wants to be with me? You begin to allow yourself to enter into a dimension of infinite possibilities. You then go to the place where God wants you to be. Well, what do I want instead? And we're all going to have to go through a process of letting go of family. Just because you're your blood family doesn't mean that you're soul family. And you begin to little by little let go of the things that no longer are the reality you want to idolize. And you begin to move yourself. And sometimes it can feel lonely, but only to an immature soul, or an immature ego. A mature being begins to realize, what, there's a process that I have to go through to move myself out of this into this. It's a journey. I will take the time, and it'll take however long it takes, but I know that I am going to be imagining a wonderful group of friends, a wonderful group of people. And I'll tell you, quantity is not what determines quality. You've got to get really clear that you want to be with those who vibrate at a level of frequency that you vibrate at. And if it's only one, that is better than 30, 40, 100 friends that vibrate at much lower frequencies. Even though they may not be this low, they might be here, but you're here. You want to go for that which resonates fully. So we just have to acknowledge, if you're focusing on this, that's what you are idolizing. That's what you want more of. So be not deceived about the meaning of a fixed belief that some appearances are harder to look past than others. This is such an important statement because the ego says, well, if it's the scientist said it's true, it's true. That I can't go against. Or the bank statement says that it is true. I can't go against that. See, point to the evidence. If my lover left me, then I can't, there's got to be something wrong with me. When you choose to point at specific things as these are real, these not so much. I can let go of the friends, but I can't let go of the partner. I can let go of religion, but I can't let go of science. If you are at a place that you are staunch about what is true for you, this will be a great exercise. Take an inventory of what you believe is absolute truth. What is it that you give power to? Do you believe it's absolutely true that you can only live in the house that you live in, that you have to pay that mortgage or that rent, or otherwise there's nothing else for you? There's no other place that you could be happy. If that's absolute truth, you will be a slave to that. You will not be free to be a nomad, to be a gypsy and go wherever you need to go. I mean, which has been part of my journey. I've spent 10 years this year since I got divorced from Ken, and I've been wandering about different places, releasing myself, because no one place could be the place for me. This whole world, this whole universe is the place. So wherever I'm in it does not matter. There's some people who can't believe that I would leave my stability and my pretty home in Georgia and blah, 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 to let go of everything, to let go of so much and come here and just live in somebody's house and in a room. It doesn't matter to me. It's not the room, the space does not define me. Is it lovely to have your own space? Sure. But that is not part of my process. My process is to recognize my total freedom. And if my total freedom is going to be acknowledged by me by being totally free of stuff and of places, then that's just the journey that I'm in. Some people can free themselves in their own house and still be completely unattached. And if it blows away, it blows away. Or if somebody takes it, squatter comes in and takes it, you're like, okay. If you're at that place of liberation in a space, good for you. For me, was to not be attached to spaces and to be able to move so that my mind could be trained into not holding on to anything as my source of liberation. I know people that this is their home and they're defined by their home, and everything is about protecting their home, and they can't go on and be free because this is it. This is their anchor. And we are being told, right here it says, be not deceived about the meaning of a fixed belief that some appearances are harder to look past than others. Course in Miracles tells us that everything is equal. Anything that affects your peace of mind is equally disturbing. It's not a little thing. It's not a big thing. The diagnosis is a big thing. Oh, that somebody stole my wallet. It's not a big thing. Everything that disturbs your peace of mind is equally as deceiving that you have given your power to something external. It always means that you think forgiveness must be limited. Oh, I can't forgive, the government. I can't forgive them for going to war with this country or that country, or I can't forgive my partner for breaking up with me. I can't forgive these people. I can't forgive my son for stealing my money. If there are things you can't forgive, then you are not at a place yet. And this is where honesty comes in, that you can be honest and say, ooh, I idolize this thing. I idolize my money. And when my son stole it from me, that I gave, I justified anger. I should be angry to him for stealing my money. If you're attached to your money and you're attached to being right about what your son or your friend or your whatever did to you, then you're idolizing, saying, this is what I am calling real. This is what I, as the creator of my own reality, want to be experiencing. And the universe, it's not the universe. Stop saying the universe gives you anything, because the universe doesn't give you anything. God created you to create the universe. God created you to create your experiences. So the universe doesn't give you joy. The universe doesn't send you your lover. You are the lover of you. You are the joy of you. You experience it from within. Nothing comes to us from the outside. This is why the fifth dimension is for those who are creating from within. That they came to a place of humbleness. They came to a place of knowing we're all one. That's why it's a world that is going to be a happy dream, because everybody is only giving of the best that is within them. The third dimension. And it's a stepping stone. It's like third grade. You don't stay in third grade just because you get to third grade. You move on to fourth and fifth and sixth. Well, we're moving on to fourth and fifth and sixth dimensions. But your mind is what will allow you to have that experience, not the outside. The outside doesn't get better. Excuse me. It's not that there's going to be a fifth dimension being created and they put on a sign vacancy and have you move there. Is that you create that because you believe that that's what you prefer. You believe that that's what you deserve. You believe that that's what is real. You believe that you are the creator of it. And then it shows up. You have to believe it to see it. And you have set a goal of partial pardon and a limited escape from guilt for you. What can this be except a false forgiveness of yourself and everyone who seems apart from you? So while we are believing that we can forgive certain things, or that we are still talking about these things are real, while we're making that our reality, we're not freeing ourselves from what we say we prefer. So we are at a time when we have opportunities to compare, to contrast this and that. The guilt and anger and justifying control and shame and blame, or freedom, love, gentleness, sharing, and awareness that we're all one, and awareness that we are powerful beings. and acceptance that I create my own reality, and a commitment to moment by moment by moment, think the thoughts that you want to see come into manifestation. You have got to think the thoughts that you want to experience as your reality. It all starts with thoughts. We are ideas in the mind of God. We were thought first. And here we are. If you want a world that is totally and completely, and don't imagine the fifth dimension about what you're going to get. That is not what the fifth dimension is. The fifth dimension is about what you are going to give, because we receive through giving. Are you going to give your poetry? Are you going to give your art? Are you going to give your music? Are you going to give your truth? Are you going to give your love? Then that's going to get multiplied. The fifth dimension is not where you're going to get, and then you're going to be rich and have a mansion. And that's not it. It's the dimension where you no longer are seeking outside of yourself for fulfillment. That's the fifth dimension. And look at how that's worked for us. In operating in limitation, and I want this and that and the other, we've created a mess that we are now having to witness. Oh, that's not what I want. That's what's wonderful about the mess that we're in right now, is you get to see it and go, okay, been there, done that. I forgive myself for forgetting that I helped co-create that. So I take responsibility for that creation. And now what do I want to do with my creative powers? This is what I prefer. So it takes an incredible amount of honesty, courage, determination, and imagination to be able to have a happy dream. And with that, we will complete. That was paragraph number 6. How wonderful. We will see you next week. Yes, I'll still be here next week. The following week, I'll be in Georgia. So I'll get to see some of my Georgia friends. It's going to be a lot of fun. And until then, until next week, 12 o'clock. If you enjoyed this, please share it with others. Let them know what you are discovering that is helping you become clearer about the truth of who you are, and help me spread the word. All right. Love you all. Take care and see you next time. Bye-bye.